100 grams of flowers on which butterflies sleep, 200 grams of tilda root, a handful of nagda dirt, 50 grams of rata claws, and the last thing is the hair of the person who enters into the contract. The girl was glad that the ingredients were simpler than she thought. She found the dirt of the nagda, which could not be reached, while inspecting the corner of the attic. It was risen Hakata, and she completely forgot about preparing for the herbal medicine lesson and realized this only late in the evening. When the local herbalists had already closed their doors, the girl remembered her aunt's attic. Her aunt, Layla Hakat. This is her only relative who became famous in the kingdom as a brilliant pharmacist. Layla went crazy and died at a young age, the year Risen came of age, and her things were still stored in the attic. Since her aunt was a brilliant apothecary, it was not difficult to find the necessary herbs. Another girl accidentally found her notebook. Among the recipes for potent reagents, she saw the same one, the dream communication reagent. The girl thought about it and read more about this reagent. Expected effect: the ability to discreetly contact spies from other countries. It looks like the girl's aunt developed it for military purposes. Risen had never even heard of such a reagent. Therefore, even if she tried it just once, no one but her would know about it. Limitation: single-use product if you want to establish a continuous connection. The girl decided that tomorrow she would give it to Daniel. In her mind, she promised her aunt that she would take the medicine just once. In any case, she never had a single opportunity to improve her relationship with Daniel. Result: you can enter the dream of the person who drank it. Risen would be glad to hold his hand at least once in a dream. At the academy, Daniel Latines Amatan studied martial arts with swords in pairs, and Risen watched this fight with her friend. The third prince of the kingdom of Amatan, Daniel Latinus Amatan III, was her longtime love. Risen's best friend Ash is Daniel's half-sister and they get along well. Her full name is Ash Sankara Amathan, and whenever she asks to visit Daniel, Risen can stick close to her like a shadow. However, it is obvious that the girl could not admit her feelings to Daniel, also because most crown princes and princesses marry for diplomatic purposes. Risen sat on the steps and sighed in frustration. Hey, I lost again as expected. Defeating Kaidan is not that easy. Is it possible to win like this every day? Risen Hakata and Caden Roos have been rivals since they strengthened at the same royal high school. They competed because they wanted to occupy the same place. They took turns taking first and second place since school. Both were novice researchers, so both teachers and classmates were interested in them. Since promotion to the top of the investigation department happens quickly, she didn't want to lose to Caden. Risen, this guy is becoming more and more like a monster. You need to work very hard to become the head of the investigative department, Daniel told her. Looking at Daniel, Risen thought that tonight in Daniel's dream, she would take his hand and tell him that she liked him. Even if in a dream, she will at least be able to try, and Daniel's subconscious will be able to tell what he thinks about her. If he says that she is a beautiful and smart girl, that will be great. Risen offered the guy a bottle of water, and Daniel, in a friendly manner, suggested that Caden drink some water first. And when he drank, the girl realized that she was in trouble. Caden filled the bottle with new water and handed it to Daniel. And Risen stood and looked in bewilderment at Caden and Daniel. Daniel asked Risen and Caden what was wrong with the two of them. Is it all because they are rivals? They both want to become bosses. We have different electives, we cannot be called rivals, Caden answered. And Risen tried to calm down because sleep was only for once. In any case, we will be colleagues and nothing can be done about the feeling of rivalry. Risen tried to speak like an angel, because Daniel was nearby. But the girl still wanted to prove herself in this exam and show others that she was better than Caden. She decided that she would try her best. Ash asked Risen why she didn't enroll in pharmacy. After all, she has good grades in herbal medicine. And besides, she is Layla's niece. The girl replied that she hated being in a locked laboratory. She is active, and therefore the investigation bureau is more suitable for her. Daniel was very curious about who would become the boss, so he suggested that they try to fight once, and Ash assumed that they were both going to hide their skills so that they could see each other during the investigation exam. Risen was upset that she wouldn't be able to get into Daniel's dream. Today she will just see Caden in her dreams, but tomorrow she will try again. Everything will be okay, right? For Caden, this is just one dream, Risen thought, but things turned out completely differently for them. The next morning, Risen woke up to the sound of her alarm clock. She couldn't believe she was in her room. After all, what happened in the dream was so realistic. That night, Having fallen asleep, the girl woke up and found herself standing in the training room. The space in a dream depends on the subconscious of the person who drank the potion. In that place, Caden was practicing for the general exam, and Risen was watching him. But he noticed her immediately. The girl decided to behave as naturally as possible in his dream. So she decided to fight Caden in his dream. But the result of such a battle was obvious. She lost. But he continued to hold her, hugging her from behind. Candle demanded that she give up, but she did not want to. Then he asked her not to move. Hugging her, he said that he could not hold back any longer. Risen didn't know and doubted, but his body was so hot. She asked if he had gone crazy, and Candle replied, "Are you against it?" And the ribbon fell from her hair to the floor. The girl was wondering why this happened, and no traces remained, which means it was really just a dream. She looked under the blanket. Now Risen didn't know what to do next, and how to look Caden in the eyes when they meet at the academy today. At the academy, the teacher told the students to decide by next week which of the 3 departments they want to get into, and next week the general exams will take place. Ash asked Risen where she would be enrolling. This was the first option, the Investigation Bureau. The second option was the Information Office, and the third option was the Medical Office, which she would immediately enroll in, and there was little point in even trying. While Risen was telling Ash that she likes to move and doesn't want to be locked up in a pharmacy lab, Caden sat behind her and stared at her. The guy was wondering why he dreamed about Risen Hakat. Of course, he understood that at his age it was normal to have such dreams. Why did she? This was the first time such a realistic character appeared in his dream. Although she is quite an attractive girl with a cute face and an interesting personality, he considered her a talented person competing with him for primacy. But he never thought of her that way because she was his rival. Plus, he knew she liked Daniel. Risen asked Ash if she was going to get married after graduation. She answered yes, but she would really like to be a person not from the royal family. Ash wanted to live a normal life in her country and do what she loved. Candle reflected that the fate of non-hereditary royal offspring is always an arranged marriage. But even so, Risen was in love with him. She looked at Daniel like that. She must not have been able to tell him that she liked him. Daniel, who was sitting nearby, called Candle to leave. Candle asked him to wait. He wanted to check something. When she passed by, he wanted to kiss her neck. She only appeared in his dream once, and he was already reacting like that. The guy couldn't understand why this was happening to him. Risen was preparing for the general exam that would be next week. She knew what she would do, but she still wanted to be the best. And her main opponent is Candle. Even if you use magic in battle, it will still be difficult to defeat him. Also this dream, the details of which popped up in her head. Who could possibly have such a strange dream? The girl was outraged that Candle had ruined everything for her. After all, she only wanted to meet Daniel once, at least in a dream, if not in reality. The current king originally had 2 wives, a queen and a mistress. The queen bore him 2 sons, William, the first prince, and Daniel, the third prince. Then, when the queen died, the king's mistress, Testy, took her place. Reuben, the child she gave birth to, is the second prince. And also from this royal family was Ash, the daughter of another queen who lived quietly without any special whims. Since William is healthy, attractive, and has a royal family name, he will be successful. And Daniel and Ash will be used for political purposes. Even if Daniel had never seen his chosen one, Risen still had enough reasons to hide his feelings. Risen really wanted Daniel to be an ordinary person. That's it. Today she won't be able to study anymore with such thoughts. It's better to do physical training. Hey, your time for personal use of the gym is over, now it's my turn, Risen shouted to Candle as she entered the training hall. Although he did not expect her to appear, he told her that she could use another room. The girl replied that everything was busy there. Risen needed a punching bag for training. She told Caden that all the punching bags in other gyms were occupied, and she began to train. They were alone in this room. In any case, the girl didn't care. But she was very worried about the fact that she once appeared in his dream. While Candle was training, Risen noticed that he had broad shoulders. She scolded herself for this thought because she likes Daniel and should not be distracted by anyone. But still, Risen thought that it was normal for him to have such dreams. The girl was about to straighten her hair and tie her ponytail, and Candle looked at her without looking away. Risen decided to ask Caden if he would go to the Investigation Bureau. He answered yes. Then the girl said that she also submitted her first application there. Caden replied that he heard about it from Daniel. It seemed to her that the guy was more indifferent than usual, and far from the need to talk. After training, Risen and Kaidan discussed studies, books, and training. Then the girl was about to leave and he stopped her. The guy warned her that if she went to the investigation bureau, she would have to see a lot of unpleasant things. And he asked why apply there. Risen was outraged by this. She told him that being female does not mean that she will not be able to withstand all this. She also asked if he thought she would be a burden when working with him. Kaidan replied that she is hardworking and cannot become a burden to anyone. The girl reminded him that they were hard workers and had the same grades. The guy replied that he just likes to move and gets good grades without straining. Then Risen said goodbye and reminded that they would meet at the comprehensive exam. After all, those who submit documents to the investigation bureau compete with each other. I will definitely try and defeat you, Risen said to Candle goodbye. He replied, okay, see you in the exam, and looked after her, admiring. Where am I? Risen thought. It was very green all around and there was a stream running. Is this the capital of the kingdom of Ametan? But this is not at all like Amenity. She decided to walk further, and the girl saw a guy who was visiting the graves of his parents. On the graves there was the surname Russ. That's Kaidan's last name. Yes, it was him, although a little younger. Kaidan told his parents that he would definitely join the investigation bureau. Risen remembered that he has an older brother, and she heard that he will now inherit the estate. This means that these graves belong to the lords of the province of Rus, Kaidan's parents. The guy put a bouquet of roses and a letter on the grave. It was a pass to the Royal High School. Having put down the pass, he said, I will definitely find out everything. Kaidan noticed Risen as she reflected that her graduation from Royal High School was 5 years ago. So Kaidan is 17 years old here. Risen came up to him, sat down next to him and began to calm him down. She told him that she also lost her aunt, who was like mom and dad to her, and then it seemed to her that the world was collapsing. Every day was incredibly painful for her, but somehow she survived, and he will be fine. He looked as if he had already seen everything in his life. Why is this so sad? Risen hugged Kaidan tenderly. She wanted to support him so much. You will go to Amenity and make a lot of good friends, and you will definitely end up in the investigation bureau, Risen said in his ear, hugging him. Kaidan thanked the girl for her concern and stroked her face with his hand. Why did my heart suddenly beat so hard? Risen thought. But why does Kaidan kiss me as if I'm the most precious thing in the world to him? The girl was at a loss. When Risen was awakened, she did not understand why Kaidan appeared in her dream again. After all, it was said that the potion was disposable. It turns out that Risen dreamed about him just like that. The memory of last night was very clear, and it was just a dream. The girl walked along the corridor of the academy and thought that Kaidan visited her too often in her dreams. Because of this, all her thoughts are only about him. Isn't this Ash's bag? Daniel asked her with a beaming smile, and he offered to carry Ash's heavy bag, which Risen was carrying. Risen went to the cafeteria and Ash went to turn in her law homework. Then Daniel suggested going to the dining room and waiting for her there. The girls said that today there will be a lot of people in the dining room, since after dessert they serve 5 types of fruit pudding. Then the guy said that they needed to hurry. It's worth going early to try all 5 types of pudding. Ash will still be a little late. Daniel asked him and Kaidan to stand in line for food while he went to buy tickets for the food. You like to give up, she heard from Kaidan. Then the girl asked what he meant. He replied that next year Daniel would be a married man. If you close your heart, you will only feel pain. This guy is all alone and doesn't care about the throne, so he won't have a mistress, Kaidan continued. I know, Risen replied. Then Kaidan suggested that she surrender. After all, this is not the person who will look at such a thing as love. Risen didn't understand what it meant to give up. It's not like she's tried anything, and Daniel doesn't like her either. Candel asked what she was going to do. She was going to leave everything as it was. Yes, she liked him, but what can she do? There is nothing wrong with unrequited love. Daniel will not be burdened by these feelings. Risen said that she just wants to keep her heart. She explained to Candel what this meant. When their studies are over and they start working individually, other people will appear. And when he leaves her sight, she will fall in love with someone. Until then, she will try hard to remember him and love him with all her heart. Risen went to the library. She found a book about the year 2170 according to the royal calendar. She was interested in the 5th of April 2170. No matter how much the girl thinks about it, There is something strange in the fact that she dreamed of Caden 2 nights in a row. They decided to check something. She was very surprised when she read that more than 100 people died on April 5th. This was a list that included only nobles. Usually they contain no more than 2 or 3 names. And this is the day that Daniel's mother, Queen Suzanne, died. It was the anniversary of Queen Susanna and the day of the completion ceremony of the Harem Palace, a villa in the West. On behalf of the king, who was then employed as a representative, the queen went. The lords gathered for her sake and held a banquet. Then a fire broke out and everyone died. Russ' territory should be in the West. Caden's parents were also present at the banquet. Then the girl was shocked by what she read in the book. Albert Russ and Natalie Russ died on April 5, 2170. She definitely could not find out the names of Caden's parents and the date of their death. In a dream she had by chance, so it was his dream. Well, how can that be? After all, the instructions said that she would fall into a dream only once. Maybe the potion wears off slowly, then everything will be okay tonight. Caden was lying on the bed half naked and Risen was sitting next to him. You again? The guy asked, looking at her carefully. Risen sweetly replied, Yeah, it was Caden's dorm room. As expected, she fell into his dream again, there was no doubt about it. The girl saw the photographs on the shelf. There was Candle with Daniel on one and Candle with his parents on the other. The guy said that in the photo he and Daniel were 3 years ago. He didn't think he'd become friends with anyone, but he became close with this guy. Risen asked if it was because Daniel was nice and kind. Candle replied, Does he look like that? Simply because there was no choice with whom to be friends. Candle laid Risen on his bed and looked into her eyes, hugging her waist. The girl thought that grief had brought them together. On April 5th, the accident occurred in which Caden's parents and Daniel's mother died, and soon they all went to the same school. Now it seems all strong emotions are forgotten, and only cold anger remains. Caden twirled her long hair around his fingers. He asked Risen why she was silent when he talked about Daniel. Risen said since he is sad he can let her go, but the guy decided not to let her go. It's still just a dream, isn't it? Caden asked and leaned over her, about to kiss her. Caden, no, first kiss. The girl got out. Risen, you still can't do this to Daniel. Caden whispered, holding her chin with his hand. Then the girl gave up and wrapped her arm around his naked torso. He kissed her. Risen Hakat, tell me you want this too. Caden whispered to her. Why didn't it all end in one day? Risen was indignant, running into her aunt's office. She mentally scolded her aunt for such a recipe. The girl decided to double-check all the ingredients, and she immediately found the mistake. She added a handful of dirt nowhere, not nowhere. The nameplate was old and she thought it was the ingredient. What to do now? If at least one ingredient is incorrect or the proportion is calculated incorrectly, various symptoms or side effects may appear, and she added dirt to nowhere, instead of dirt to nowhere. And now the restriction on the one-time effect has been removed. The girl was thinking how she could fix everything, and Risen remembered how her aunt said that every medicine should have an antidote. This was at least something that could help her. And since pharmaceutical science is an artificial science, even a return to its natural state is considered completion. Her aunt could do whatever she set her mind to as long as it involved medications. However, she could not create antidotes, so she was unable to start production. It's not for nothing that all these notebooks remained just notes. Auntie had many ideas for producing excellent medicines, but she was never able to create an antidote to them. Even she, a pharmaceutical genius, could not correct the situation. What to say about her herself then? In the evening, Risen decided to go in for sports. Caden was working out as usual in the same gym with Pears. He wondered if Risen would come to train. He could not forget that he had been dreaming about his rival for 3 nights in a row. This was also a dream about the time of his youth. Parents' funeral. Then, at 17 years old, no one consoled him. The Russ estate instantly lost its owner and was taken over by his older brother at the age of 19. We've all had crazy days. That is why his older brother did not console the 17-year-old youth, who was quiet and thoughtful. If this had been an ordinary dream, that day would have been completely different. But Risen sincerely consoled him, stroked him and hugged him. The feeling was overwhelming. Risen finished training in another room and went to the library. Caden entered the library and noticed her. Her books were not like textbooks. He was interested in what she was reading. For 5 years, he had never been interested in girls. but she began to catch his eye by appearing to him in his dreams for 3 nights. Risen searched, but could not find even a phrase that mentioned the potion with which dreams are associated. She put off studying for her exams for this, but it wasn't worth it. The girl noticed that many people appeared in the library, but she definitely didn't expect to see Kaidan in the library at such a time. Until now, her thoughts were only about Daniel. But when she saw Kaidan in her dream, she understood why so many girls were attracted to him. He is handsome, good at sports and studies. Despite some coldness and arrogance, you want to hug him tightly. And for some reason, there is deep sadness in these eyes. And that black hair looks so elegant. Risen scolded herself for all the lewd thoughts towards Kaidan. She wanted to be with Daniel. Fortunately, my father overcame his critical condition. Recently, attacks have been happening more and more often. The disease is getting the better of him, his older brother told Daniel. It's good that William, Daniel's older brother, has been involved in politics since childhood. He and his brother decided to discuss the issue of succession to the throne. Testi, being a politically savvy woman, will not stand aside. She achieved power with the help of the cabinet and the aristocracy. She became an empress. But her main problem was that Daniel knew about her true desires. Every woman in the harem dreams of her son becoming emperor. Still, she doesn't have much power. Although Amiton is independent, the brothers will not be able to just oversee the empire with such military power. Daniel told William when he took the throne he should do more research. After all, he himself knows what they are talking about in the Western Palace. Much time has passed, but there are still victims, including them. William said it would be nice if his father held on a little longer, at least until she and Ash graduate. He would really like to see their wedding. And Testi sat over the bed like a king and asked him to hold out a little longer, saying, "Not yet." The next day, while Risen was studying in the library, Kaidan ran in and shouted her name. Did he really understand everything about the dream? Risen thought, and he swore that she submitted her application to the pharmaceutical department. He was indignant that she told him that she wanted to join the investigation department, and then suddenly the pharmaceutical department. When Risen realized that he was angry because of this, she suggested that they go outside to talk. They went out. It was a cool evening outside. All this fuss turned out to be because she wrote a statement to the pharmaceutical department. Kaidan thought she would choose the investigations department. The guy asked why she finally settled on pharmaceuticals. Well, I wish she had thought about this earlier. But for 5 years she wanted to get into the investigation bureau. From somewhere, suddenly, a week before graduating from the academy, pharmaceuticals appeared. Risen responded that people tend to change. Remembering her Aunt Layla, the girl said that she decided to follow in her footsteps. Kaidan didn't believe her and said she was lying. After all, Professor Saphael suggested that she go into pharmacy so many times, but she constantly refused under the pretext that she was not as talented as her aunt. Risen said that Kaidan is an eccentric and does not understand his capabilities. After all, if she is not in the investigation department, then he will be the best there. The girl asked why then he was preventing such a good arrangement. Kaidan told her that they really wanted to be the best, but he wanted to fight with her. All this time, since school, they competed. They vied with each other for the top spot in the rankings, but never really competed properly. And if we completely forget about the race, then working together wouldn't be so bad. He didn't know what her circumstances were. Therefore, he suggested that she go into the investigation, adding that this would be good motivation for him. The girl apologized and said that she learned something while leafing through the books, and she needs to finish one thing. This case is much more important than her dream job. After all, drugs that have a long-term effect on the body often shorten life expectancy if you do not take the antidote within a year. And she gave Kaidan a potion with exactly this effect. And now Risen simply must make an antidote within this year. She was very sorry that she could not go to the investigation department. She simply had no choice but to become a pharmacist. Since she started this mess, she should sort it out. Risen said, "No matter how many years it takes, even if it takes forever. It all started because of me, so I have to put an end to it." Kaidan grabbed the girl's hand and asked what was the matter. Why does she choose a career that she doesn't like at all? He was worried about her and offered her his help. She replied that he could not help her, but she can handle it herself if she tries. And for some reason she wanted to tell him something personal that she had never told anyone. Her mother died while giving birth to her. Dad was disgusted to even look at her, so he gave her under the care of her aunt and went to a monastery. This is how she ruined 2 lives at once from birth. Therefore, her aunt taught her to live more diligently than others and take every day as a gift. Her birth was a great sacrifice compared to other people, so she promised herself not to waste her life. That's how diligent she was. That's why she would never give up. And in the pharmaceutical department, he will work as hard as he can. Risen lied that becoming an investigator was not that important to her. Moreover, various chemicals are found in crimes. Their two departments are closely related. Caden called her a fool because she continues to love a man with whom nothing will work out for her. She will also put all her effort into a job that she doesn't even like. Then Risen replied, "Anyway, if you need a pharmacist, let me know." She said that she would definitely help with any questions he had. Although the girl still liked Daniel, she would never forget that cool night when she and Caden discussed their future. At graduation, Ash stood with Daniel and did not understand why Risen and Kaidan were not going. Meanwhile, they were hugging behind the wall at the end of the corridor. After the second night, Risen knew that she would end up in Kaidan's dream. Because of today's rehearsal, the background of this dream turned out to be graduation. Caden tried to kiss the girl and said that after today they would no longer wear the same uniform. And she gave up. The guy kissed Risen and said that he wanted them to go to the investigation bureau together. He promised that they would become good colleagues. Caden also told her that he would miss her, because she listened carefully to the lessons at this school, and they competed for first and second place. And also, Risen, you really are very beautiful when you play sports. Therefore, in fact, Caden didn't have time to finish when Risen's alarm clock rang. The girl woke up and thought about his words, whether they were sincere. She decided that in his sleep he spoke unconsciously, but now they will be in different departments and will not see each other unless something special happens. Risen caught herself thinking that she would miss him too. Compared to the dream, the graduation passed calmly without any incidents. And starting tomorrow, everyone will start working in their own department. Risen thought that a good memory would be that she went to the same school as Daniel, with her unrequited love. It also seems that she will miss her rival, who was always by her side. Now everyone has their own path and career. Two friends, Daniel and Caden, were sitting in a gazebo on the street and drinking tea. Caden said that there is a lot of work in the investigation bureau, and he can't sleep or exercise. Daniel replied that the boss deliberately piled on the work so that he could be promoted. Caden said that he thinks he knows what happened in Amadan, even that the son of the Lord who owns the local land cheated. But such incidents can be part of a larger conspiracy and need to be pieced together. Daniel asked him to take his time and not worry. Caden asked a friend when he was getting married. He replied that there were as many as 12 princesses from which to choose. Although the parents have not yet decided on the candidate, one way or another, the ceremony will take place next month. And with Ash, it was even more confusing. Initially, she was going to go to the desert kingdom of Hansim, but at the same time she received an offer from the Empire, possibly in the form of the Emperor's concubine. If Ash takes this position, she will be treated the same as William. And if everything ends, then his marriage will be postponed. But this is nothing compared to the royal wedding. Daniel inquired about Caden's personal life and asked why he didn't start dating someone. As always, this topic was the most interesting. Caden replied that he did not have time for a relationship, and a friend reminded him that in the investigation bureau, many bosses are lonely because of their work. Then Daniel offered to introduce him to a beautiful aristocrat. Caden refused and said that he would rather go to bed. Before leaving, Caden told Daniel that only a wizard could have caused such a fire, and he gave him a list of wizards who died a year after the fire. The peculiarity was that they died from the same symptoms, sudden death due to backflow of magic. Caden said that the investigation bureau can only view certain records of the royal palace, and asked Daniel to gain access and find records about these wizards in the royal palace. Daniel remembered that while he was talking about death, he continued to perform his duties, so there was no need to worry about Kaidan. With such skills, he can safely start dating any girl. The girls sat and drank tea in the palace. Ash's brother William was due to arrive soon because of her wedding. Ash was upset that Risen didn't call her by name at the castle. Risen asked that not following formalities could harm Ash's reputation. The girl believed that etiquette must be observed when communicating with a member of the royal family. Ash really didn't want to get used to it. She thanked Risen for the book she brought. Risen asked why she needed a book and empire on herbology. Then Ash told about the offer to go to the Empire and become the Emperor's concubine. William wants her to leave, and Ash was thinking about what kind of power a concubine of a small country could have. Just like her mother, Live and be afraid that you will be replaced by Testi. Risen answered why Ash thinks Amiten and the Empire are the same. Moreover, if the Emperor gives preference to Her Highness, then she will have incomparable power in her hands. But Ash decided to go to the Empire if it would add strength to William as a ruler. She could no longer look at Testi and her son, and he shouldn't become king. Ash informed Risen that Daniel might also be getting married next month. He will marry one of the Emperor's younger sisters, and Daniel believes that she should give strength to William. Ash apologized to Risen. After all, she knew that she liked Daniel. Ash admitted that she saw her crush on Daniel but never discussed it with her. I just took her with me to meetings with him. She believed that then it was necessary to listen to her friend, find out what was bothering her, console her, and be sad with her. But Ash didn't do anything then. Risen said she made a wise decision, just helping a friend be close to her unrequited love. She was happy. At that moment, a maid ran into the room and said that the king had died. The girls stood shocked and wondered what would happen next. Caden brought Risen to the pharmaceutical department with the conclusion of medical experts. Experts concluded that this was not drug-assisted murder, and Risen in the pharmaceutical department checked all possible reactions to the reagent in the body and found nothing. This means there was no poison in the body. In general, he died of natural causes. The death of the king at this time was not beneficial to anyone. The next contender for the throne is William. He has an ironclad alibi, and the prince's servants are not so ambitious as to plan such a thing. He died before he dethroned William. Testi and Reuben panic. Caden asked Risen how things were going in her business, which she was going to complete in pharmaceuticals. She replied that she needed to deal with him as soon as possible, but there is a lot of work in the pharmaceutical hotel now, so she cannot do her business. Caden replied that everything was clear from her face. The most terrible life. The guy remembered that they had not talked to her for so long, and what good times they had at school. He also mentioned that he dreamed about her last night, probably because they were going to meet today. When the girl asked what exactly he dreamed about, he replied that he no longer remembered. The girl breathed out a sigh of relief. They were about to say goodbye when Jid in a white robe entered their office. He informed them that Prince William had died a few hours after the king's death. The couple stood in shock, and he told them that in a hurry the laboratory tested the reagent and it turned out to be positive. Risen suggested that there was then a possibility of drug-assisted murder. Jid said that therefore it is urgent to detain the suspect, and this is Princess Ash. Then Risen remembered Ash's words about William wanting her to leave, about how she would help him become stronger. And the girl fell to the floor on her knees. Caden rushed towards her, and Risen said what Ash said. She reminded him that it was this morning. Risen really asked him to let Caden solve this case. Risen came to Ash and Daniel at the castle. Ash was very happy to see her. Professor Saphael was with her. She was the head of the pharmaceutical department. Saphael said that they should take her saliva and blood for tests. Ash asked if Reuben would now become king. She was told that if things continued like this, he would become king, just as William should have become. And this is what Queen Testi really wants. Ash and Daniel were in a very disadvantageous position, but they had to try to do something. There was an urgent meeting of the cabinet and aristocrats this morning. They want to declare a period of doubt. This means that the succession to the throne can be prevented. One member of the royal family must make a statement, and more than half of the nobles must vote yes. There were many on Testi's side, but William's death was a sudden blow to everyone, so they may get more than half the votes. Ash hugged Daniel and told him that he knew what choice she would make. She will declare him king and will be removed from the list of heirs. He must definitely become king. The guy agreed, although he had no intention of becoming king before. For Risen, this was good news, because then his engagement would end on its own. Professor Saphael told Risen, "Don't think that the princess is innocent if you were friends at school. She's just a powerful suspect. You need to understand that in the pharmaceutical department, everything is based only on facts. When it comes to creating anything, there is a slight difference between tea and medicine." Risen defended Princess Ash, explaining that she had a good relationship with Prince William. The professor said that she would work and understand that anything can happen. After going through all the difficulties and gaining valuable experience, you learn that words can be wrong. I didn't suspect that Layla... Saphael did not finish. Layla, my aunt? Risen thought. I didn't think she would die like that. That such a smart person would go crazy, said Professor Saphael and hurried Risen. The girl was sure that she was hiding something about her aunt. Risen had heard that they were the best colleagues in the pharmaceutical department. What is she hiding? That tea, the problem was the drink he drank in the morning. Things get more complicated if every unique reaction to an ingredient turns out to be positive. At least it turns out that Prince William didn't die after drinking that tea. But if the princess really is a criminal, she could drink the antidote. Wait, the tea you are talking about. I drank it too, even this morning. Please check me too. Risen asked Professor Saphael. There is a magic in the pharmaceutical department that does not allow the antidote to pass through. Therefore, if someone were sent, they would have to come out to take the antidote. And Risen was at the department all day today. Initially, I had no objections to Reuben's candidacy for the role of king, but everyone recognizes that the events that took place are very unusual. A healthy William died that night. Furthermore, according to the pharmaceutical department, it was a homicide by an unknown reagent. I have a lot of doubts. Therefore, as a member of the royal family, I am going to announce a temporary period of doubt. You know that I am as much a contender for the throne as my brother Reuben. Following William, I would like to investigate the series of these events. Daniel spoke at a meeting of the cabinet of ministers and aristocrats. A period of doubt occurs when doubts arise regarding the identity of the heir. Then the transfer of power is postponed. At this time, pretenders to the throne must provide evidence why another person cannot become king. In the meeting hall, they said that since the majority voted for, then a period of doubt would apply for 2 months. I, Reuben Sisef Amatan, second prince and pretender to the throne. Initially, I was the heir, so I will ascend to the throne if no circumstances prevent this, Reuben said. I, Daniel Latines Amatan, the third prince during the period of doubt, have the right to be the heir to the throne. Daniel made a response speech. The king will be determined by popular vote at the last meeting, where not only aristocrats will be present, but also vassals of each state, as well as landowners. I, Ash Sankara Amatan, renounce my right to inherit the throne and declare my support for Daniel. I've always been on William's side, Ash said. Testi thought, what a cunning girl. And Reuben told his mother that Ash was still the main suspect. The girl will not have a stylish influence on the decision of the meeting. They were informed that, according to the pharmaceutical department, her innocence would be proven within a day. One of the department employees has a close relationship with the princess, and she drank the same tea as Prince William. Testi was outraged. She was informed that pharmaceutical department employees were not covered by the antidote. This will prove that the tea the princess drank was not sent. Testi ordered to find out everything about this employee. Risen, meanwhile, recalled that her aunt was thinking about many reagents, a potion to enhance magic. If she really developed it, it would be worthy of summoning the mages. We need to work even harder to leave a legacy behind, Risen thought, and I didn't even notice how I fell asleep. When she opened her eyes, Kaydan was sitting next to her. She thought it was a vision because there was no one in the empty compartment except the two of them. But if this is a dream, then the background of her laboratory was too realistic. Risen thought she was crazy for thinking such a thing. Kaydan was surprised that she was alone in the laboratory, although he also stayed in the investigation department for a long time today because of this incident. When the guy asked Risen why she was still here, she replied that she was studying something for personal purposes. He immediately understood what business she was talking about, but he still insisted that they needed some rest. Risen replied that if you find excuses for yourself every day, then the end will never come. This is a problem of willpower. Even if you fail in the end, you can't have any regrets. He used to think that she was obsessed with achievements, but the more he watched her, the more he realized that she was not thinking as positively as she seemed. And its driving force is not success, but failure. Instead of achieving success, she is ready to live life without regrets, even if she fails. Risen liked Danielle, even though she had no chance of success. By the way, why are you here? Risen asked. Kaydan replied that he came because of the investigation and was surprised that there was at least someone here, but she was sleeping too soundly. Then he sat down at the table, took paper and pen. Kaydan began asking Risen about that day. So did you have tea with the princess? He began. Yes, Prince William left before me. The tea was already brewed, the girl answered. Then he asked how long she had been there. It was about half an hour. Kaydan then asked what they were talking about. She replied about the engagement, about Ash possibly leaving, about how the princess missed their past conversations. The guy said that this was not enough for half an hour. Risen was contemplating whether to speak or not. Caden said she's the most important alibi for a possible suspect right now. Then Risen spoke about how she liked Prince Daniel at the academy, and the princess asked for forgiveness for pretending that she did not know about it. Ash said that she regrets that she could not listen to me, comfort me, and be sad together. That's really all. Then we heard that the king had passed away, Risen said. For some reason the girl could not look him in the eyes. Caden said okay, and that it was time for him to go. Then Risen offered to drink coffee for him. The coffee prepared in the pharmaceutical department was very tasty, and Caden couldn't refuse it. Risen joked that he would now always ask her for this drink. Caden just kept answering, okay. That's why she couldn't make friends with him these 5 years, because he said so little from the beginning. But as he was leaving, Caden turned around and told the girl that Daniel had broken off his engagement. But Risen knew that he would still marry after the period of doubt had passed. Caden replied that if Reuben became king, Daniel would not allow himself to be used for political purposes. But if Daniel becomes king, then… Risen did not want to listen further and he left. Walking down the corridor, Caden thought that he had not volunteered for the investigation for this conversation. But he could not forget what he saw when he entered the office. The table is in complete disarray. The robe is too big for her build. Her curly hair is on top of the documents. Risen again did not understand whether this was a dream or not. It was night outside. He and Caden were sitting at the table in the office and discussing the big fire that happened 5 years ago. A large fire that left no traces could only be created with the help of magic. But they did not know a wizard of this level. The flame created by magic is weak, but once it flares up it is very difficult to put it out. The problem is how it was possible to set fire to a huge castle. The investigation reached a dead end, and then King Zathelfan ordered the Investigation Bureau not to carry out further investigations. Otherwise, the Queen's place would be empty. In the secret records of the Bureau of Investigation, there is a testimony from a maid of the royal palace, which states that Testi wanted to become queen and was putting pressure on King Zathelfan. Caden told Risen that if you look out of this window you can see Queen Testi's palace. Everyone in the castle suspects that she was behind the fire. Since the king favored her, she did not pay attention to suspicions. Just think, the woman who killed over 100 innocent lives is now a queen. Caden admitted that when he feels anxious and feels like he's at a dead end, no matter how much he searches, he stands here and looks out the window. Risen approached him, and he hugged her from behind and said that the funny thing is that you can see the pharmaceutical department from here. When I look at the Queen's palace, I start to get angry again. But having seen only the building of the pharmaceutical department, I feel a surge of energy again, admitted Caden. I don't know what some idiot is doing there, but she's definitely working hard on something, the guy continued. Risen asked to let her go. Caden reminded her that she had given up on the Investigation Bureau and asked what he should do now. After all, she promised him to do everything possible so as not to regret, and these words became an incentive for him. Then out of the blue, he asked why she liked Daniel. Does she want to be with him as much as she is now? Caden asked that in his arms she would think only about him and no one else. Risen didn't understand why she couldn't say no to him. Risen's alarm rang and she was angry that she couldn't answer anything in her sleep. After all, it was his subconscious. She thought about what a pervert Caden really is, and during the investigation he puts on a menacing face. The girl could not understand why this bothered her so much. Prince Daniel discussed William's sudden death with a representative from the Bureau of Investigation. The prince said the Investigation Bureau only has the main lead each time. The man replied that the Investigation Bureau was avoiding identifying the perpetrators and further investigation. It is difficult to see the truth when there are prejudices. Daniel assumed that Queen Testi and brother Reuben were behind this, and officially asked the Bureau of Investigation to prepare a written statement and report on the murder of William, so that this can be presented as evidence at the last court hearing. And he asked that Caden Roos be assigned to this case. Daniel asked him to help Caden in the investigation. He replied that the Bureau always tries to reveal the truth, and judging is the job of aristocrats. When Daniel and Caden met, the prince announced that the Investigation Bureau would become busier. Because he asked permission for an official investigation, Caden responded that William's death needed to be investigated urgently, because if Reuben becomes king, he will stop the investigation, like then with the fire. The guy said that even if they remain objective in the face of the truth, the Bureau is the primary department of the royal palace and obeys the orders of the government. Daniel told his friend that he checked his list with the records of the wizards who went to the palace. While Testy was a concubine, a magician often visited her. It was the woman Catherine, Testy's younger cousin. She owns a small shop of magic elixirs. The strange thing was that she was a very rich woman. Daniel saw her several times at the ball wearing expensive jewelry. Caden promised to find out about Catherine. Daniel really wanted to reveal everything at the last court hearing, and about William's death and that terrible fire. Daniel had a feeling that something would happen if they put this off. "We need to act immediately." Caden agreed with him. Caden asked Daniel where they were going now. He replied that they were heading to the pharmaceutical department. "You need to submit an official request for an investigation there too." The guy thought that his bureau would cooperate with the pharmaceutical department. He himself did not expect, as he told Daniel, that he did not have to go there. After all, they simply provide research results. But Daniel wanted to say this personally and at the same time visit Risen. Caden remembered how in a dream he asked her to think only about him. And now that Daniel was free, he realized that he had a rival who she liked. But he remembered how he decided to live without distractions until he revealed the truth and took revenge. Until then, he will risk his life and everything else. At this time in the palace, a photograph of Risen was brought to Queen Testy. The messenger said that this was the same friend of the princess, and also the niece of Layla Hakat. And every free minute in the pharmaceutical department, she begins to look for all her aunt's research. These are not only records about them, but also all kinds of textbooks, notebooks, as well as her personal materials. Then the queen ordered to get rid of all research. But the guy replied that the pharmaceutical department was a secondary institution, unlike the investigation bureau, and did not obey the orders of the royal palace. Therefore, records cannot be seized. And since the department is a place of research and these records can serve as future research, they should never be disposed of. Especially due to Layla's rare abilities, all data is going to be carefully stored, and no one will do this. The queen said that once Reuben ascends the throne, there will be pressure on organizations associated with the kingdom. She was sure that the girl suspected something. Testy ordered to continue surveillance, and the messenger told her that Prince Daniel had now gone to visit her. The queen decided that they could just be friends, but the guy said that the biggest problem is the guy in the photo. The queen recognized him. It was Caden Russ. He said he was Daniel's best friend, and he said that there was a report about a fire 6 years ago that said it was under investigation. The queen realized that this was not good. Ash and Risen are close, and Daniel is closely related to this guy, so there is definitely some connection between Layla's niece and the Russ family's investigative officer. That's right, the messenger confirmed her words. Prince Daniel took Caden with him to her. The queen ordered to watch them carefully. Daniel is still a newbie and his every step is predictable. Let's get rid of it gradually. We have been preparing to take the throne for too long. He won't learn in 2 months, said the queen. Professor Saphael scolded Daniel for causing His Majesty trouble by visiting the pharmaceutical department. He replied that he didn't know it was impolite. She continued that this is the ethic followed by government-affiliated organizations. And in such cases, the pharmaceutical department consults with the investigation bureau. The professor said that the purpose of creating the pharmaceutical department is to develop new elixirs and combat various illegal drugs. Daniel became upset, thinking that it was probably due to Layla's influence that he thought the pharmaceutical department used to be friendly. But the professor said that researchers should only study and no sympathy. You need to work without contact with the royal family. She said that she would understand him. And he left the office dejected, realizing that he was not aware of the entire state of affairs. Due to his irresponsibility and ignorance of the duties of a prince, the actions he performed before are now burdensome to those around him. The prince remembered Kaiden's words not to go to the laboratory, and thought that he should have listened to him. When Daniel saw his friends, he became more cheerful. They sat on a bench and didn't talk at all. Daniel asked them why they hadn't gotten closer yet. Risen jumped up and greeted him. Daniel asked her not to greet him so formally, to be simpler. Risen apologized for not yet offering him her condolences. The prince replied that there was no time to be sad. It will be possible to grieve after the last court hearing. In fact, he himself had not yet realized that William had died. He thanked Risen for releasing Ash and dropping the charges. The girl thought, but Ash would still have to live in the palace. As Daniel thanked her, she looked at Caden and remembered his words. Would she want to do this to Daniel? Daniel told Risen how he often walked through this park with Ash and Layla. and he asked the girl about one favor that she could do for him. Risen visited her aunt's grave near the monastery. Seeing the monastery, she always remembered how her aunt took her there to see her dad. Each time, little Risen remembered her father as a man who abandoned his child. And seeing her sad face when the girl was 10 years old, her aunt stopped taking her to him. After that, Risen never visited her father. He only confirmed his existence by sending paintings of flowers to his aunt's grave. But now there was a bouquet of red roses on my aunt's grave, and she didn't like roses because of the thorns. And most of all, she didn't like the red ones because of their bloody color. The girl told her about her work, about the fact that she was busy to death, about the fact that it was difficult for her to make out her aunt's handwriting, and about the fact that she urgently needs to create an antidote, but she can't do it. Although she has already accomplished a lot, and also about the riots in the palace. She even talked about a guy she likes, but it's very difficult to be with him. And about Daniel, who will soon become king. In the end, Risen thanked her aunt for raising her so well. She remembers her love and goes to the end, no matter how hard it is ahead. Risen decided that as soon as she prepared the antidote, she would go on a long vacation, and he will think about living well. The girl thanked out loud the person who brought these flowers for his care, even though her aunt didn't like them, and said goodbye to my aunt until next year. As Risen walked to work, Daniel called out to her. She didn't expect to see him at all, and she had her hair tied up and glasses on her eyes because she was tired. The prince said that he was just walking around the palace and somehow accidentally reached the pharmaceutical department. The girl thought it was suspicious. He had never walked like that before, and he invited her to take a walk. Daniel asked Risen how big of a flame she could create. After all, she chose magic as a subject at the academy. She replied that it was very small and showed it to him. Her magical power has decreased, so the flame cannot flare up. Daniel asked that the problem is not with the magician's abilities, but with his magical power. And if there is a lot of this force, then you can create a large flame. Risen replied that magical power is the ability to store magic in its natural state and use it. In theory, it is possible to create a large flame. But how can you collect so much magic without power? This would be possible if there was a potion that enhanced magical power. Daniel thanked Risen for the information and offered to take her to the pharmaceutical department. And she replied that she was glad to help him. The girl noticed that he came to her in person, and the prince replied to this that Caden had gone on a business trip, so he had to come alone. When Risen heard Caden's name, she thought that he was too busy and didn't sleep well, and therefore he has not appeared in her dreams for several days. She was worried about him. Daniel asked if it was possible that there could be a potion that enhances magical powers. Risen replied that she didn't know for sure, but it was probably possible. Magic power is very dangerous. In her aunt's notebooks, she saw many experiments that were not successful. They had different side effects, but even if her aunt failed, the others didn't even get closer to the goal. Daniel thanked Risen for the information. Risen wished Daniel good luck and strength to survive all this, and he replied that her Aunt Layla would definitely be proud of her if she were watching from heaven. Daniel then asked Risen if she remembered the day they first met. All those moments won't happen again. Daniel wishes he could go back to a time when he had no obligations, when everyone was alive and no one held a grudge against them. He would do anything for this. The prince asked the girl if there was a potion that could turn back time. She replied that no, but she would definitely look. At 13, her aunt was still cool until she went crazy, and the palace she saw for the first time was amazing. At that moment, she didn't know that being an adult was so difficult. Professor Saphael scolded Risen for talking to the prince and for not being at her workplace yet. The boss said that she knew that the girl dreamed of working in the investigation department, but now she works in the pharmaceutical department. The moment magic disappeared, botany became the personification of power in the world. The department is engaged in the most dangerous and exciting case, and therefore the department has no reason to interfere in the affairs of the royal palace, and Risen must treat everything impartially. Professor Saphael said that the girl should leave high-profile cases to the investigation department, and she reminded that their friendly relations with the prince were in the past, and they can no longer be friends as before, much less trust each other. Nothing good will happen if her name is mixed up in political squabbles. Saphael asked Risen not to get close to the royal family, and said that she was telling her this not as a boss to a subordinate, but as a friend's niece. Risen was sitting at the table at home, preparing a reagent when suddenly there was a knock on the door. It was night outside. She went to the door and asked, "Who?" It was Caden. He was covered in blood. The guy told her not to be scared. The blood was not human but wolf. Risen sent the guy to the bathroom, and he asked her to do an analysis of the reagent that he got. These were the remains of 5 corpses. He apologized to the girl for having to watch this. She was offended because she was a novice investigator in the past. The girl asked if he shouldn't formally submit his request to the pharmaceutical department. He asked her to help him because he was researching it in secret. Risen agreed and went to test the reagent only for simple reactions. And Caden went to the bathroom. When Caden came out of the bathroom in a robe because he didn't have a change of clothes, the girl looked at his toned body. Risen said she tested the reagent for simple reactions, and there is a possibility that the death of 5 people occurred from the same reagent. Analysis of the reagent composition will take some time. The girl said that she would do everything possible if it was related to the Prince William case. The girl said that the analysis would take about 3 hours. In the meantime, he can dry his clothes. But then she noticed his wound. His hand was covered in deep cuts. Risen treated his wound and said that the investigation was quite brutal. And it's good that she didn't go there. Caden replied that going into the pharmaceutical department was a good decision. The girl reminded him how he was indignant at the library that she applied there. He was just worried about her, so that she wouldn't do anything dangerous, although in fact she saw a lot of unpleasant things in her work. Risen joked that she had to choose the investigation department and she would beat it and take first place, and she would be the best in the department. Caden admitted to Risen that when he said she needed to give up Daniel, he didn't know it would turn out like this. After all, now she is lonely. Risen asked if he wasn't lonely. The guy replied that he had a lot to do and had no time to think about such things. There are people who have time. The girl agreed with him, but she hadn't seen him free since high school either. And he said that she would be a good investigator. Risen noticed his gaze on her, the same as in a dream. At such a moment, it seems to her as if she is really dating him. While the girl was preparing hot chocolate for them, Caden fell asleep. She made him comfortable and covered him with a blanket. He looks like he's very tired. It was an unusual feeling, because she had always been alone in this house since her aunt died. Risen liked it so much that there was someone else here. The girl decided not to disturb the guy's sleep, and to do an analysis of the ingredients for now. It can't be. No, the girl repeated several times, covering her mouth with her hand in surprise. When Caden woke up, Risen called him for breakfast. The guy apologized for causing her a lot of trouble. Risen assumed that he was already late for work. Caden responded that the department does not have a set timetable for investigations. Then the girl admitted that no one had ever visited her since her aunt's death. Then the guy scolded her for opening the door to strangers at night. He added that he could, but the rest do not know how to restrain their desires, like him. Risen decided to switch to work and told Caden that she found the same component in the blood of all 5. If they died because of the reagent, then it's the same thing. The guy expected this. Risen asked why he was investigating the deaths of these people, and he replied that it was better for her not to know this. And this is his personal investigation, without her participation. Then Risen continued that these are all the remains of different people, differing in gender and age. Only she thinks that they were wizards, and that magical power remained in their remains. The girl, of course, was offended that he didn't say anything, and she asked how she could carry out further tests if she asked to do it without explaining anything. Caden explained that this case could be very dangerous, so he did not want to involve her in it. Moreover, it still has nothing to do with her, and Risen said she had a connection. After all, the reagent that she found in all 5 of them. She didn't finish and asked again what he was investigating. The guy replied that he couldn't trust anyone, and although he asked her to do an analysis, he cannot tell her everything about this case. Then Risen asked if he had any idea what kind of person could make this reagent. Can he at least tell her this? Caden replied that this man had killed 5 people and was avoiding prying eyes. This must be a terrible and cruel person. After all, murder with the help of drugs is a cowardly and planned crime, compared to murder committed with a knife. That's what Risen thought. If you asked 100 pharmacists about the analysis of these ingredients, all 100 would come to the conclusion that this is an absurd combination, and they would have concluded that the murder was not with the help of a reagent. It contains very unusual ingredients that are not used in standard reagent production methods. Risen wasn't sure about the others, but she only knew one person in this world who could think of such a combination of ingredients. The composition of this reagent is often found in Aunt Layla's research, but she was not that kind of person. And it's not because she's her aunt. Why would she kill wizards who have nothing to do with her? In terms of research ethics, she is as honest as Professor Saphael. Caden replied that while in the investigation department, he realized that there is no such thing as, he really is that kind of person. It is impossible to fully know and understand another person. Therefore, Risen once again asked him to tell him what kind of case he was investigating. If her aunt did something bad, then it was her job to expose it. But what if she is falsely accused? After all, everything points to her. But since she has already died, she will not be able to attend the trial and justify herself. Caden gave in and told her that 6 years ago there was a fire at a banquet in the Western Palace. The queen at the time was Daniel and William's mother, Queen Susanna. She and more than 100 Western lords died in that fire. Risen knew about this. But he continued that isn't it surprising that the new palace caught fire so quickly and was not extinguished? There is a very high probability of using magic, but with its help it is impossible to create such a fire. This will require a large number of wizards, and that would definitely create problems. Therefore, the investigation has reached a dead end, and the late king then ordered the investigation to be stopped for the sake of Queen Testi. Caden said that his parents died there among the lords, and therefore he came to the capital to investigate this matter himself, as he was very upset and angry. And then he met Daniel. No matter how Caden tried to look at this matter without prejudice, for him the conclusions were obvious. With the help of this fire, Testi took the place of queen and pushed Reuben to become second in line to the throne. If not for this, Reuben would not have pushed Daniel back in line. They also won over the aristocrats to their side, many now for Reuben. The investigation department has information that they were involved in the elimination of William. Caden believed that Testi and possibly Reuben were to blame for the fire. But the main rule of the investigation department is not to build rash hypotheses. But in his opinion, everything is obvious here. Caden was outraged that in order to become king, he did this to more than 100 innocent people. Such a cruel king simply cannot rule. Therefore, Caden believed that he was obliged to solve this case and force the perpetrators to suffer a fair punishment. According to Risen, Caden made a vague assumption and he is in big trouble. She has no doubt that a newcomer to the investigation department is studying the Queen's case personally. Of course, she guessed that Daniel was behind him, but he is just a prince who was named successor to the throne. Caden informed her that during the period of doubt, the royal family would be able to conduct a formal investigation with the assistance of the investigations department. Daniel removed many experienced investigators and put him in charge of the case. William's death is also a murder, but he is only investigating the fire. If we assume that the fire was caused by magic, then the next thing the organizer will do is silence the witnesses. Therefore, he checks on the wizards who died after the fire. They were all clients of the same herbalist, and Caden selected the ashes of 5 people from among them. And the cause of their death was the reverse flow of magic. Risen covered her mouth with her hands in shock and horror. She said that when she looked through her aunt's materials, there was a reagent that she worked very hard to develop. It wasn't easy 1 or 2 substances, and she studied it a lot, and it was a reagent that enhances magic. Caden's eyes widened. However, the aunt failed. As the reagent was being developed, side effects appeared, so she was unable to develop it. Risen said that's why she told Prince Daniel that this couldn't happen. When he asked if a small number of wizards could create such a strong fire, there is no reagent that enhances magic. And how can it be developed if it contradicts the laws of nature? One of the reasons for failure is the side effect. Due to the reverse flow of forces, death occurs. This is one of the notes among thousands of scribbles of her Aunt Layla. That's why no one knows about it. But she knows because she looks at her notes every day. She may be the only one in the kingdom who knows the truth, because her aunt was developing a reagent that ordinary people could not even think of. After all, her aunt was a pharmaceutical genius. She would not publish the research results for fear that the substance would cause side effects. And yet Risen admitted that the imperfect reagent developed by her aunt could kill more than 100 people. How painful it would be for her to learn about this from heaven. Risen covered her eyes with her hands from the tears that flowed down her face and hair. Everything was very clear to her. What would her aunt do out of injustice if she were falsely accused? The wizards who took the magic-enhancing substance developed by her aunt started a fire and died from the side effects. Perhaps she did not tell about its additional properties. The guy himself wanted to believe it. Risen no longer knew what to think. Caden replied that wizards are obsessed with power, so they must have taken the dubious reagent without thinking twice. The guy hugged her and calmed her down. My aunt Really died a natural death? She really went crazy because she did a lot of research, Risen asked him. Kaiden hugged her even tighter. Risen then resentfully reminded him that he said he couldn't trust her, and she hugs him so stern. He asked for forgiveness. If you are sorry, then let me join your investigation. Don't you need to know the truth? The girl asked. Risen believed that she too had something to do with this case, from the moment she learned that her aunt had something to do with it. Now this also applies to her. Kaiden told her that their opponent was the queen, and he is ready to die. And the girl replied that she was ready too, and he forgot how much she wanted to get into the investigation bureau. She promised him not to be a hindrance, and the guy replied that this is completely different. Risen continued that there is work that she can do too. Risen extended her little finger to Kaiden and asked him to promise her that he would take her as his partner. Yes, he has Daniel, but he belongs to the royal family. Kaiden admitted that he couldn't sleep now, but he used to dream about her often. He wasn't interested in her then, and he was curious why she came to him so often. Although he did not believe in fate, he believed that her appearance in his dreams was a gift. Risen could not answer. She had to keep it a secret. Of course, I know that a reception in honor of a national holiday is important, and it is directly related to the lives of many ordinary people. But now national mourning still continues. The king and prince died on the same day. Therefore, there is no point in having a reception as usual, said someone in the hall. But the subjects will be very upset if we cancel it. This is a very well-prepared event. Only a week left until the appointment. The damage caused to the people involved in the preparations will be very great. The trouble of the royal family should not disrupt the life of an ordinary person. Someone else replied. Of course, the reason is national mourning, but no one should sacrifice their life. How about we change up the royal ball and make it simpler? Daniel suggested. Not even 10 days have passed since the death of my father and brother. Why don't you take young girls and dance with them with a smile on your face? Queen Testi asked Daniel sarcastically. She also added that she didn't know how much he wanted to come to the fore, and that as a mother she is ashamed of him. Daniel lowered his head guiltily. Testi asked her messenger where her son Reuben was and why he did not show up at the meeting, to which he simply replied, "It's raining today." Risen and Ash were sitting at a table in a room in the royal palace. Ash told Risen about the royal ball that will be held this weekend. Since this is a period of national mourning, it has been slightly changed. Previously, they were students and could not go to it. Risen replied that she heard about the ball. She told Ash to have fun at the ball, and Ash replied that Risen was also going with her. The girl was at a loss. She didn't understand why she should go there. Risen began to refuse due to the fact that she does not know how to dance. After all, her aunt also did not attend such events and did not take her with her. And besides, she was not an aristocrat. Ash laughed and only said that the ball is a place where not only dancing, it's a chance for young people to get together in a natural setting and socialize. Risen thought that this was not for her. Ash thought it was good to gather in groups, make connections, and watch handsome men flock in from all directions. Then, you can dance with the one you like. But Risen told Her Highness that she was not interested in any of this. Ash was outraged that she intended to continue to do only her research, and that she wants to grow old alone and die. After all, in 2 or 3 years she will become an old maid. Risen replied that she would think about it in 2 or 3 years. Ash replied that time would not wait for them. She learned this in her short life. You need to have time to try everything. Risen decided that she would work hard on all kinds of research. She wants to be a scientist, so she talks about her achievements, not her connections. And she is not at all interested in how beautiful men flock from all sides. She never learned to dance, and she doesn't want to look like a fool at some ball. To this, Ash answered her that since she was not at all interested in Soviet society, then she did not know who all the young girls at this ball would be interested in. She did not know. And it was Daniel because he is the man who can become the next king. Moreover, they will try to support him after the death of his brother. Ash added that he doesn't have a fiancé right now, and this is her chance, which heaven gives her, and now he does not need to marry a foreigner if he becomes king. Well, yes, that's right, Risen replied. And Ash was outraged by her reaction. After all, at the ball there will be a variety of girls who will be ready to do anything for his attention. When Risen said that she was just a researcher and Daniel would be the king, Ash reminded her of how 100 years ago, King Charles married an administration worker. Ash also asked her not to worry about clothes, jewelry, and makeup. She'll take care of it. Risen objected that it would be better for her to do research at this time. Then the princess admitted that from childhood she knew that she would have to enter into a political marriage. But love will only bring disaster to her. If you are from a royal family, you should just forget about such a feeling as love and just do your duty. But the king sincerely loved Testi. Since Ash's fate cannot be corrected and she still will not take the throne, she decided to leave. And she asked Risen, together with Daniel, to fulfill her request when he became king. He asked to be sent to a young aristocrat, to a principality not far from their kingdom but much weaker, to a place where there is no such hidden struggle. Risen realized how sad it was to be from a royal family, and Ash said she didn't want to be a problem for Daniel. If now she meets someone and falls in love with him. That's why Ash wanted her friend, being free, to do everything possible to find her love, because she herself was forbidden to do so. She believed that it was so joyful to be able to love, to dream about the future together and to feel this excitement in the depths of her soul. Ash was jealous that Risen would be able to experience these feelings. Daniel may not like you and I don't want to force him, but you never tried to talk to him about it. Maybe we should try at least once? Ash asked. Just once approach the man you like and ask him to dance. Princess Ash really wanted to thank her friend, who helped clear her of false charges in a murder case and just wanted her to be happy. Meanwhile, at Testi's castle, she asked the girl if Reuben had returned, and she asked her to persuade him, talking to him more gently. It was Naram, Reuben's concubine. She asked how she could do this if he didn't come. The queen took her hands and told her that all she had to do was give birth to his child. Reuben is quite a few years old, and he must quickly secure his right to the throne. Testi invited Naram to go to his palace herself. Naram replied that she went several times, but then Queen Testi replied that obviously it annoys him. He will change when he becomes king. A month later. Can you do this? Asked the queen. The concubine answered, yes. She added that it took them 5 whole years. The most difficult ingredient was prepared the day before yesterday. There are still some components left. And once the rest of the components are ready, they will do it before the final hearing. The queen said that everything was going according to plan. Testi asked the girl if she also needed this time. Naram answered yes, and this time they needed the blood of the one Daniel loves and who loves him. Naram asked the queen if she knew that the deeper their love, the more natural his death would be. The queen replied that she had not hoped for such a thing. Most of the noble girls are crazy about Daniel. You can choose one of them at the upcoming ball and take blood from her. Although Daniel is only interested in the throne, he is unlikely to like anyone. Still, among them there will be at least one that suits them. The queen also wanted to talk about her son. She told the concubine that he likes confident and straightforward girls. If Naram is not decisive, then she will become nothing. The queen left, reflecting that now not everything was going according to his plan. Testi entered Reuben's room and asked if he wanted to become king, to which he replied that now he only thinks about it, and that, in any case, they had already gone too far. He will go to the end. And Reuben asked, so what if he missed such a meeting once? Moreover, my mother will clear the bloody road for me so that I can become king, the prince said to his mother with a mocking look. Risen was at home and discussed with Kaiden that if Layla had anything to do with the fire that happened 6 years ago, then a reinvestigation into the cause of her death should be conducted. Kaiden replied that, in fact, the investigation department carefully checks such cases, but it seems that they did not pay attention to her death, since she went crazy. The girl agreed with him, because even the dates did not match. She began to go crazy 6 months after the fire. She simply forgot how to talk. She just lay there and ate. She was easy to take care of. But one day she quietly fell asleep and never woke up. The guy said that it's true, it's just normal madness. There was very little information and they needed at least one small clue. Then Risen remembered that on the day her aunt died, Professor Saphael came. She learned about the death and ran away in confusion. She also carried out reactions of various reagents like crazy. She didn't even believe that her aunt just died peacefully. And the result of this test of reagents was natural death. But come to think of it, Professor Saphael knows something. It would be nice to ask her herself, but she most likely won't tell anything. After all, Risen tried to find out many times, but she was harsh. Kaiden said that he talked to Daniel about how their opponent was a queen who could kill over 100 people, and the king was on her side with all his heart. Will Daniel, who is so far from the throne, be able to do anything? They were powerless, waiting for William to take the throne. While Risen listened to Caden's pleasant voice, she fell asleep on his lap. But he decided not to wake her and fell asleep with her on the sofa. When the girl fell into a deep sleep, she again found herself in the gym with him. They lay on the floor, either struggling or hugging. The guy said that it's very difficult for him, because the girl he likes doesn't even look at him. Risen wondered if he really liked someone else, and she was just a partner. If I'm a good colleague, then tell me who she is. I want to know. There should be no secrets between colleagues, Risen whispered in his ear, lying on him. Caden admitted that there is one girl he really wants to protect. One fool who knows nothing. When the alarm clock rang, the girl woke up and found herself lying on Caden's lap. He fell asleep on the sofa and slept in the same position. After sleeping, Risen couldn't look at Caden and went to the bathroom. She wondered what kind of fool he wanted to protect so much. See you at 11 o'clock in the garden gazebo behind the pharmaceutical department. Daniel. Risen read the note from the prince and ran in the rain. She couldn't even take an umbrella because she ran away secretly from Professor Saphael, and the girl got wet through and through in the rain. Risen ran into the gazebo and apologized for being late, and it wasn't Daniel sitting there but a guy she didn't know. He was wearing luxurious clothes, and she realized that it was Reuben. The girl apologized and said that she was mistaken, and Reuben suddenly called her Layla. She said it was her Aunt Layla. Then he remembered that she must be Rezin. Then she corrected the prince that her name was Risen. The girl asked the prince if he knew her, to which he replied that he saw her as a baby and she had grown a lot. And Risen remembered that if Kaiden's assumption was correct, then this man and the queen were behind all the incidents. Reuben said that in fact she looks nothing like Layla, except for her eyes. And at that moment, Daniel appeared and covered the girl with his umbrella. "What business do you have with Risen?" Daniel asked Reuben, standing with her under an umbrella at the entrance to the gazebo. And Reuben responded by asking why they agreed to meet secretly. Daniel and Risen didn't have time to answer anything, when Reuben stood up and proudly walked out of the gazebo into the rain without an umbrella. This surprised them very much. The prince asked the girl if Reuben was trying to threaten her. Risen replied that he didn't tell her anything like that and she just came. And Daniel said that he was late because he went to get an umbrella. When they sat down at the table, the prince asked the girl for a favor. As far as he knew, the pharmaceutical department, due to drug control, controlled the distribution route for medicinal herbs. Therefore, he asked her to learn the name and address that was written on the piece of paper. The name is Catherine Jansen, and it would be nice to track this route. Risen asked whether this should also be done not publicly. The prince replied that he could not ask for an official investigation because the queen might find out about it. This was his plan for now. Under the pretext of investigating William's case, he turned everything upside down, and even studied the fire 6 years ago. Risen then added that this could be compared to the ashes that Kaiden found. Daniel was glad that she was so smart and did not need to explain anything to her. Risen asked why he didn't pass this case through Kaiden. After all, His Highness must be busy. Daniel replied that Kaiden had gone on a business trip. The girl remembered how quickly he left this morning. Apparently, he immediately left her on a business trip. She remembered his wounds and became worried for him. When Risen returned to her work, Daniel reflected on the fact that, in fact, this task was not urgent. Why then did he want to see her so much? Daniel will be surprised. He definitely didn't know that our stubborn Risen could be so elegant and sexy, Ash said to her friend when she saw her dress. Risen told the princess that she was also very beautiful. Ash was happy that today she would be able to meet a prince or duke from a country that had no power struggles. The princess was beautiful and anyone would have liked her, but she said that she is still jealous of Risen, because she only loves one. Today Daniel will not see her as a little girl in a school uniform, but Risen wondered if he was exactly the same as Ash said. She used to get so nervous when she saw him and her heart would start beating faster. But what now? He's still attractive. But she's thinking about something else. Since Ash said that this is the last chance to get closer to Danielle, therefore the girl decided to go and test her feelings. She decided not to think about anything, and especially not to worry about Kaiden. Still, Risen was grateful that Ash looked like a rich lady. This day has come. The ball is the dream of all girls in love. Dress up and wait for the object of your desire to extend his hand to them, and dance under the gaze of others. Just being at the ball made Risen a happy girl. She was sitting next to Ash, the only princess in the kingdom. When Daniel approached them, Ash asked how much he had danced already. The prince replied that he avoided it as best he could. Then Risen remembered how she and he discussed the ball in the gazebo. Daniel then asked if she would go to the ball. He said that Ash was really looking forward to her going to the ball with her, and if he asks her to dance, she will have to accept his offer. Raisin then replied that she was a bad dancer, and the prince replied that he would teach her to dance until she learned to do it well. And now, this moment has come. Daniel told her that there would be someone at this table who needed to be taught to dance. And at this time, an unfamiliar guy approached them. He approached Princess Ash and introduced himself as Jihan from the Hansim Kingdom. Ash introduced herself back to him, and Jihan invited her to dance. The princess agreed and went to dance with the guy. And Risen thought that this was not the Ash she knew, and the tone of her voice completely changed. Daniel noted that these were natural things for a princess. There's nothing you can do if you have two sides and one of them is royal. Risen replied that this is not the Ash she knew, and Daniel said that she herself was also not the girl he knew, and a very beautiful girl. The girl decided that she would continue to spend money from her salary on beautiful things and jewelry, and Daniel said that it was time for their dance. Risen was hesitant, but the prince reminded her that he would teach her until she succeeded, as he promised, and Daniel extended his hand to her. The guy told her not to worry, as she would most likely succeed. She replied that there was almost nothing she couldn't do well. As they danced, Daniel complimented Risen on how well she was doing. She replied that it is not difficult when you have a good partner. It's even much easier than martial arts training. Risen noticed a sad girl on the throne next to Reuben and asked who she was. The prince replied that this was Naram, Reuben's wife. They have been married for about 7 years and still have no children. Reuben brought it from the Hanstim desert. Daniel thought that the prince would return with a woman from a more powerful kingdom. Besides, she is not a princess. It is surprising that Queen Testi did not say anything about this. Prince Daniel called Risen an amazing girl, but he couldn't do anything about it since he belongs to the royal family just like Ash. Only she has already revealed her real self, but he has not yet. He wanted Risen to understand that his intentions and position were incompatible. Daniel admitted that he danced with many girls that evening, but she turned out to be the nicest of all, and dancing with her was the most comfortable. This girl continues to dance with Daniel for the 3rd time. And when he looks at her, the expression on his face completely changes. This is Risen Hakat, niece of Layla Hakat. As the circumstances have developed, I will complete the task first, the messenger informed Queen Testi. When Risen went to the restroom, something strange happened. She ran into a group of girls. One of them spilled wine on the floor from her glass. That girl accused Risen of being inattentive and any more, and she would have stained her dress with wine. They said about her that they didn't teach her etiquette at school. But Risen remembered Ash's words that big quarrels occur between rich ladies. The girl began to insult her again. She began with the fact that Risen works for the royal palace, and she ended with how she dared to go to the same school with His Majesty and look at him. Risen replied that she was too busy to participate in such a thing and wanted to leave. Then that girl said that when she becomes queen, the first thing she will do is deal with her department. With these words, Princess Ash approached them and told the girl that if she became queen, she would have to quarrel with Daniel so that he would come to his senses. Ash drew the girl's attention to the fact that all her cosmetics, which make her skin snow white, were developed by the pharmaceutical department, which she was about to close. And the princess also asked if she realized what benefits these departments bring to the kingdom, in contrast to the always bickering nobles. And anyway, Daniel won't become king if he chooses a woman like you. Go if you understand, Princess Ash ordered her. The girl leaving whispered to Risen that she was behaving inappropriately for a mistress, and it looks like she's just like her aunt. Risen turned around after her. She wanted to know what it meant. Ash calmed her down and told her about this girl. This was the eldest daughter of the Duke of Moulton. This is the most influential and powerful person among the rest of the nobles. He was William's representative. Therefore, his daughter dreams of the throne. Ash said she would somehow get rid of this upstart. Risen was very surprised by her friend's words. The princess continued that the very first thing that upstart would do when she sat on the throne was to make her look bad and get rid of the departments. And Daniel will become a noble dog, he himself knows about it. And Risen couldn't understand how she could openly say that she would get rid of her. After all, murder is disgusting. And Risen remembered the words of Professor Saphael about the fact that after they graduated from school, they are now completely different people with the princess, and they can't trust each other like before, and she wasn't sure that this was the same Ash she knew before. Risen told her friend that she needed to go to the restroom to wash her hands. Ash offered to accompany her, but the girl refused. Moreover, the princess was not alone but with her new admirer. Ash knew what he liked. Risen asked her friend if she didn't want to find someone who was easy to use. The princess replied that it was not that interesting. They often complain that their kingdom used to be prosperous, but due to the decrease in magic, it became so. Who is only interested in hearing about curses and dark magic? Risen watched from the balcony as Daniel danced with someone else. It has been 6 years since she has been secretly in love with him. But what now? Some strange feeling makes her retreat. It seemed that she was just playing the role of a girl with a tragic love. And she left. When Risen walked along the corridor of the castle, she came out onto a balcony with a beautiful view of the night garden. The girl's words were still running through her head. "You are behaving inappropriately for a mistress." She could not understand what her aunt had to do with it. Although she was already over 30, she was not interested in jewelry and outfits. Her Aunt Layla always wore a lab coat and glasses, and such words are definitely not about her. The girl caught herself wondering what she even knew about this man. Although she grew up with her, she was very small and knew nothing, and she didn't even understand how brilliant and inventive her aunt was until she looked at her notes. What happened if such bad rumors are circulating about her in Soviet society? It was uncharacteristic for Risen to simply think and do nothing. She thought about the fact that she needed to grab the daughter of Duke Moulton and find out everything about these rumors. After all, she is a mere mortal, and she doesn't have to worry about her authority. While the girl was standing on the balcony in her thoughts, she was attacked from behind with a knife. Risen remembered her self-defense skills and loaded her heel into the attacker's head. The bandit fell, and she thought that this man was unusual. Risen decided to quickly leave here and call for help, but the door was locked. When Risen came to her senses, she was lying on the floor, and 2 people in black hoods and masks stood over her. One of them cut her leg above the knee. While they were drawing her blood into a vessel, Risen thought that since she was their target, it meant that they had hired someone. She thought she couldn't get out on her own. Suddenly, a guy in a black raincoat jumped onto the balcony. Risen recognized him immediately. It was Caden, and he was her savior. The guy threw one bandit off the balcony, and he grabbed the other by the throat and asked who hired them. He answered something incomprehensible and burned Caden's face with fire using magic. He threw the second one off the balcony as well, but he held his face with his hand and it bled. Caden joked that this is how magicians earn extra money now. The guy hugged Risen and said, "Thank God you're okay. Luckily I wasn't late." Risen was indignant because she was so good that she was able to gain some time. Then Risen asked him about the business trip, and Caden immediately understood how she knew about this. From Daniel, of course. The girl asked why he was here. Caden said that there is one magic elixir shop that probably sells potions to increase magical powers. The owner of this shop is Queen Testi's cousin, Catherine. He originally wanted to sneak there to find something. But when I saw her all dressed up heading somewhere, I decided to follow her. That's how I ended up here at the ball. And then, Risen discovered. He had no idea that this could happen to Risen. And since when did she become a person worthy of attack? The girl thanked Caden for saving her. Risen joked that it would be a shame if her pretty face was cut, and Caden told her not to say anything stupid. The girl got upset and said it was because of the torn dress, the mess on her head and the blood on her leg. And before that, she looked great. Caden replied that to him she always looks the same. It doesn't matter whether she's wearing a school uniform or a lab coat, pajamas, or a dress. The guy blushed, and he asked her not to wear such an outfit again. He also said that Princess Ash would not get away with this. Risen snuggled up to him and smiled. She told how Ash praised this ball as every girl's dream, a place where you can dress up, dance with the man you like, and feel his gaze on you. "And how is it?" Caden asked her. Risen replied that this place turned out to be where she could be attacked and her beautiful dress ruined. But since she was saved by her good colleague and hugged, it's not so bad. Caden hugged the girl even tighter and told her not to say that again. They decided not to make a fuss and leave here quietly. Risen decided to figure it all out. But first, they needed to get out of here. Then Caden took her in his arms and jumped with her from the balcony to the ground into the flowers. They approached a huge gate that was locked. The guy said about his jump that it was just simplified magic, which they trained many times in the investigation department. Kaiden asked Risen if she wanted him to take her home, rather than to the pharmaceutical department office that was connected to the palace. Risen replied that they might be noticed when the ball was in full swing, so it was better to leave through the back door. Kaiden agreed, and they moved on. The girl really wanted to go to the investigation department, especially when she found out what they teach there, like that jump from the height of the balcony, and she asked Kaiden to tell her something else from their preparation. The guy replied that this is all confidential information. When they approached another such huge gate, Kaiden said that this was his first time here, and he asked her where this road leads. Risen replied that beyond these gates is the road to the second prince's castle. The garden is very confusing and not many people know all the ways. When they got home, Risen immediately changed clothes and Kaiden helped her prepare and serve food. The couple had a nice discussion about the ball. Kaiden said that he was sorry that Risen stayed so little at the ball, because she dressed up so much. The girl replied that she liked being a princess. The guy asked why she still went to the ball. After all, department employees usually don't go to such events. Risen replied that she decided to try. She also said that the princess protected her. The guy guessed and asked if it was because she was dancing with Daniel. Risen replied that he taught her to dance. She was having fun, but the dance was repetitive and predictable. She offered to teach him to dance. Kaiden replied that he would rather play sports than dance with a girl. And how will a man with a wounded leg teach him? Then Risen decided to talk to him about this incident. What was strange was that they didn't intend to kill her. If their goal was to kill, it would be easy. Then Kaiden replied that they would not dare to kill her during the ball. After all, they would have doomed themselves to big problems, and the investigation department would intervene in this matter. Risen remembered their conversation and came to the conclusion that they needed her blood. When he appeared, she saw a jar of blood, and her wound was shallow. Because of a bad feeling, the girl broke this jar of blood. One of them said that he would cut her wrist if it were his will, and the other wanted to cut her face. Their goal was definitely not murder. They needed her blood. But where they were going to use it is the question. The girl said that if it is human blood, then it is definitely not used to create reagents. There is only one person who arouses suspicion among them. After all, they have no enemies except the queen. But the most frightening thing is the fact that she knows about Risen. The girl remembered that she hit him with her heel. Therefore, if there is one of the queen's minions with a scar on his face, it will be clear that she is behind it. Kaiden told her not to act on her own in the future and to always call him for help. The guy said the blood on her leg was terrible. When Risen heard the word blood, it suddenly dawned on her. She heard about this somewhere recently. These were Ash's words about her suitor's boring stories about curses. The girl told Kaiden that she knew where human blood was used, in dark magic. The guy was surprised because dark magic had long disappeared. Yes, and it existed only in the kingdom of Hanstim, and in other countries it was not even properly studied. It was a feature of the desert country, where due to frequent civil wars between tribes, all sorts of curses developed. Risen remembered that the wife of Prince Reuben is from the Hanstim kingdom. Kaiden said he'd have to find out about it. In general, the disappearance of black magic is a natural phenomenon that arose due to the gradual decline in the level of magic on the mainland. And since its profile is curses of specific opponents, when using it, it is necessary to have enormous forces and materials that are difficult to obtain. However, now that the hypothesis that Layla's magic amplifier is involved has been confirmed, there is no reason to doubt that black magic was used. But Kaiden had no idea where to start investigating this matter, since even at the university they did not study such a discipline. Then Risen said that regarding this, right now there is a native of Hanstim in the kingdom who doesn't even mind chatting about black magic. Kaiden did not understand, and then Risen explained to him that at the ball she saw a man who had been sighing for Princess Ash all evening. Whatever one may say, she had to go to the investigation department because such a valuable personnel is lost in the pharmaceutical department. The guy sent Risen to bed and said that in the morning, he would have one thing for her to do. This concerns Catherine's potion shop. They began to act again. Lately, they have been receiving strange items and different people are constantly coming and going. Then the girl promised to analyze everything tomorrow morning, when he gave her a list of them. Kaiden had a bad feeling. Risen asked the guy not to worry and assured him that she would find out everything tomorrow. Then she asked if he was going home. To which Caden replied that it was dangerous to leave her alone in the house. After all, not all guys are as decent as him. Risen thought that he was like the father she never had. At least today he couldn't leave her alone. Then Risen said that he could guard her all night, and he followed her into the bedroom. "Where are you going? You sleep in the living room," Risen asked. Kaiden replied that he would leave when he was sure that she had fallen asleep. Risen said that she would try to fall asleep quickly. Risen lay on the bed and thought about how good it was that Kaiden promised to protect her. After all, even though she pretended that everything was fine, she was terribly scared. Kaiden sat next to her on the bed and after a while asked if she was awake. The next question surprised her. Isn't it hard for her to love Daniel? Are you okay when all you can do is observe without being able to speak up? To someone who doesn't even love you, the guy continued. Risen replied that she had opportunities to talk to him, and they were close and often talked about everything. Kaiden said that's not what he's talking about. She told how the sight of him lifted her spirits for the whole day, and how time flew by quickly in class, and there was nothing wrong with unrequited love. The girl asked him not to ask any more questions as she was tired and wanted to sleep. Risen was sure that she would soon meet him again, only now in a dream. Kaiden considered her answer. Apparently she was fine, but for some reason he was now not okay thinking about her. Risen was at the ball again. No, it was Kaiden's dream. The guy took her hand and invited her to dance. Although he was not confident in his abilities, she really liked to dance. It was fun, even though they stepped on each other's feet. And while dancing with Daniel, she didn't even hear the music from excitement. While they were dancing, Risen thought that if he was at the ball in his dream, maybe there was a girl here that he liked. She decided to ask him. The girl asked who comes to his mind when talking about a girl dumber than him. Kaiden replied that everyone is dumber than him. Then she asked whether he would like a bright or gloomy girl more. The guy replied that the bright and cheerful girl lives in a world different from his. Therefore, during his school years, most of the time, he was not particularly interested in her. Then Risen pushed him away and went out. She wondered what it all meant. That he simply instinctively hugs the girl who constantly appears in his dreams. Kaiden grabbed Risen's hand when she was already on the porch, and Risen kissed the guy and told him to do it only with her. They were walking somewhere at night. Risen stopped and asked if they were on their way to meet Prince Daniel. The guy told her that it was so. But he is probably being followed. The queen's eyes and ears are all over the court, so they followed this path. What is this anyway? The girl asked. There are a huge number of similar labyrinths in the basement of the palace, both for evacuation and to confuse others. After all, no one really knows about them. Apart from the owner of the palace himself, no one knows about the roads that are located below. Daniel told Kaiden about this move personally, and even Ash does not know about it. By showing this move, Daniel entrusted his life to Kaiden. Usually, princes never talk about such secret passages. The guy considered it his duty to repay him for his trust. Risen asked why he showed her this road then, and Kaiden told her that he knew her too well, and she wouldn't remember the route the first time. Therefore, the guy asked her not to walk here on her own. After all, having turned in the wrong direction, she may not find a way out and die of hunger, never found by anyone. Risen said she doesn't even remember where the entrance is. Kaiden knocked on the door in the wall of the stone fence and asked Risen to be quiet. At this time, Prince Daniel asked the servants to leave him so that he could rest. The prince realized that Kaiden had arrived. He took off the picture and Kaiden entered his room, offering his hand to Risen. Daniel was surprised to see her here. Daniel sat Risen down on a chair, and she joked that he confused her with an aristocrat after one ball. He replied that not a single aristocrat could compare with her. "So where did you go? I searched all night, but I couldn't find you," Daniel asked Risen. Kaiden told him that was why they came. After all, she was attacked yesterday. Risen said that yesterday at the ball, she was attacked by two strangers in masks, but it looks like they didn't intend to kill her, just take her blood and leave. Daniel didn't understand why they needed blood. Then Risen told him briefly about their thoughts. Then the prince understood everything. The friends decided that now there were two things they needed to get to the bottom of. This is the fire 6 years ago and the murder of Crown Prince William. For such a huge flame, only a few magicians would not be enough. But if magical enhancement was used, then everything changes. In case the backflow was a side effect of the magic enhancer, that would explain why all those wizards died. And in fact, such side effects are the worst in terms of the readiness of the drug. but the best for the destruction of witnesses. Risen said that she is not a magician, but she studied this discipline as an elective subject. If there is a little more magic, you can create a fire much stronger than this. If she were a wizard, she would be tempted if a drug appeared that increased magical power. But only one person could create such a thing, Layla Hakat. Daniel said he didn't believe it. Her aunt wasn't that kind of person. Risen replied that she died and they would not know the truth. But the girl agreed that her aunt was not like that. So she wondered if this had something to do with her madness and even her death. She was definitely dragged into this. Now, regarding the death of Crown Prince William, they found out almost nothing here because there are people who obviously benefited from it. And they have no choice but to conclude that the murder was a hasty decision by the Queen. But they could not understand the method of doing it. With the appearance of a chemical reaction, Risen was sure that the reason for the murder was related to the reagents. But in fact, there is a way that they did not imagine. It was a curse. The prince was surprised by this, and Risen asked if he thought it was a curse that required human blood. Daniel replied that it was black magic. But this is impossible. Why suddenly does black magic, which has disappeared even in the Hanstim kingdom, appear in Amatana? Risen replied that the main reason for the disappearance of black magic was the loss of magic as such in this world. But everything changes if there is a magical enhancement. In addition, it will not be difficult for the Queen to obtain even rare ingredients, and Reuben's concubine is a native of the Hanstim kingdom. Daniel remembered how surprised everyone was when Reuben first brought Naram. Everyone was aware that he was targeting the royal throne. Therefore, they expected him to bring a woman who could become his strength. But Reuben returned with a girl whom he met by chance on a trip to Hanstim, and no one stopped him because he obeyed the government and had to marry a foreigner. And even Testi, who seemed to be against it, said nothing. Prince Daniel was worried that something was fishy here. Why do they need Risen's blood? Perhaps they are preparing another black spell. And due to the fact that they know nothing about black magic, it is completely unclear where to start the search. Kaiden remembered the prince from Hanstim at the ball. Daniel remembered that this is Jihan, the guy who is almost crazy about Ash. Then everything will be simple, he hasn't left yet. It seemed like he wanted to talk about his engagement to Ash. You need to invite him to the palace and quietly ask him about everything. Prince Daniel asked Risen to be with him at this moment, because if he were Jihan and such a beauty as she showed her interest, then he would tell her everything. Risen agreed and suggested that the prince invited his closest friend Ash with him to the meeting. Kaiden didn't like it, and he said, "Why complicate everything so much? He could have removed it all himself." Daniel told Kaiden that he had enough to do and needed to keep an eye on Catherine. Magicians definitely gather in their shop and buy potions to increase magical powers. Risen agreed with Daniel. After all, in the morning she compared notes with information from the Pharmaceutical Bureau. The ingredients went through several distribution channels, but ultimately ended up in Catherine's shop. Apparently, magicians were gathered in the shop so that they could drink reagents and buy magic amplifiers. But it looks like Catherine is putting together the same ingredients again as she did back then. Recently, the number of orders for various materials has increased rapidly. It seems that the events of 6 years ago are repeating themselves. And Risen turned to the prince that there was only one person left whom the Queen wanted to kill. Daniel was pleased that Risen was worried about him. Since she was here, Daniel suggested that Risen look at Ash. He pushed the book aside and the secret door opened. The prince said that only he and Ash know about this path. Therefore, she will not catch the Queen's eye. Risen must go straight through the garden and come across a secret door in Ash's castle. You need to knock twice and she will come out. Risen asked why there were so many secret passages. Daniel replied that, in fact, there are many more. After all, royals always follow a dangerous path. The Queen is planning something and it must kill Prince Daniel. But even knowing all this, he must, as if nothing had happened, pay her a welcome visit tonight. Such is royal life. Risen suddenly understood why Professor Saphael was talking about clear boundaries between her and the representatives of the royal dynasty. That's how the royal family is. The girl thanked the prince for his concern and went to her friend. Daniel wished her a good time with Ash and escorted her into the secret passage. After the girl left, Daniel told Kaiden that thanks to Risen, the atmosphere in their room was completely different. The guy asked why. Then Daniel said that his friend was not very talkative and did not smile often. And Risen is bright and energetic, and even in a difficult situation it remains like that. But Kaiden objected. Risen wasn't particularly cheerful right now, to which Daniel replied that such positive energy has been emanating from her since school, and she is a very good person. Daniel admired her. After all these noble maidens who speak beautifully, the simple and bright Risen feels like a breath of fresh air. And the prince also joked that thanks to Catherine, Caden even attended the ball. He would never have attended such an event himself. The guy agreed with his words. Daniel asked why Caden was so cheerful. He said that he had a very pleasant dream last night. The friend was surprised that his good mood was due to some kind of dream. It was not like him. Caden replied that he just felt very good in his dream. "Sorry for ruining your expensive dress," Risen cried and apologized to Ash. Her friend calmed her down and said that it was nonsense. The most important thing was that she was safe. The princess asked Risen why the attackers were targeting her and why they needed her blood. And where can it even be used? Risen didn't know if she should tell Ash about black magic. After all, she was not so long ago accused of murdering Crown Prince William. And the princess now does not know who she will marry. But if the queen is up to something, then Ash would rather not know that she is targeting Daniel. In fact, even while making a plan where Princess Ash would be bait for Prince Handsteam, the question in Risen's mind was whether they could do it. But despite this, the royal family considers even people an obstacle to achieving political gain. And besides, Ash officially declared her support for Daniel. Ash asked her friend if Daniel personally told her about this secret road. After all, Daniel would not show this road to someone else. This means that he trusts her very much. Risen thought it was normal because they were friends, and Ash said that her brother is not as cheerful and kind as he looks. And this is natural for a member of the royal family. But Ash was sure that Risen was a special girl for him, whom he trusted. Risen then admitted that she really liked Daniel from the very first day of school. She even recorded conversations with him in her diary. And the prince is still the most handsome guy for her. But her heart does not flutter now. Even when they danced and he smiled at her, she didn't feel anything. Princess Ash assumed it was because so much had happened lately. But she didn't understand how the feelings could disappear so quickly. Ash thought that the reason could also be that she was attacked, and she again asked why they needed her blood, what was wrong with it. Risen replied that it actually had something to do with her aunt. After all, her only ability is that she is Layla Hakat's niece. Otherwise, why do they need it? The princess was surprised by the fact that Aunt Layla's name appears here. Risen admitted that she no longer believes that her aunt died a natural death. When Ash heard this, she screamed, "If this is really so, then she will not leave it like that. The truth will not leave. She's ready to beat the queen to death right now." Risen was surprised by what Ash shared with her. It turns out that Layla cared about her more than her own mother. Her mother is a foreigner who came from a country that has no power. And because of her weak character, she could not even achieve love from her father. And now it's like she's locked in her own palace. Is this different from prison? After all, because of fear of Testy, yesterday she could not even attend the ball. It was as if she was her mother's guardian. Ash felt like she never once felt protected by her mother. And Layla became her first teacher and a real adult. Layla taught little Ash different things, and she knew better than anyone what she was afraid of. Ash was even interested in botany, like Aunt Risen. And I was very sad when I found out that members of the royal family could not work in the pharmaceutical bureau. I was very sad. And Layla calmed her down. Risen thought that this was the first time Ash had talked about such personal things. She sincerely wanted to achieve justice and did not want to live in vain. Ash thought she would go crazy, remembering how Layla only laughed and did not talk before her death. The princess asked Risen if she shouldn't be furious that the death of her beloved aunt was part of Queen Testy's plot. To this, Risen replied that she would like to be angry by losing herself. But instead, she, on the contrary, should investigate this matter even more calmly. It seemed to her that she had been holding something inside herself for a very long time. The girl believed that the only place where she could relax was in her dreams. What? Engagement with Princess Ash? But after all, such a conversation already took place under the late king, Jihan asked. Daniel replied that a promise made well in advance was more important. Therefore, she and William clashed in opinions. Jihan, of course, agreed to the engagement. Risen was surprised at how quickly he took Daniel's bait, how the prince lied without blinking an eye. Actually, I think the girls of the Amadan Kingdom are really beautiful, especially because in our desert there are no representatives with blonde hair. When I first saw Princess Ash, I thought she was truly beautiful. I don't know the details of Amaton's internal policy, but I will be grateful to you for your assistance, said Jihan. Risen noticed that Jihan was too nervous and Princess Ash might not like it. She decided to talk to him and introduced herself to him as the princess's closest friend. Of course, it is wonderful that the princess will marry a good man. But it will also be good if she loves you, right? She asked the prince. Jihan replied that the princess is so beautiful that there are still many people who are ready to propose to her. And Risen led him to this. Then the girl continued that the Hanstim kingdom, in fact, a small country and an empire, could talk about the proposal again. Jihan replied that this was one of the problems that arose due to the disappearance of magic throughout the world. Risen realized that she had hit the mark. And Kaiden asked about black magic. Is it really possible to even kill a person with the help of magic? Asked Kaiden. What horror! Risen seemed scared. And Jihan replied that it is not as simple as in words. Otherwise, there would have been someone alive in Han's team. The conditions for carrying out the killing curse are very complex. Usually only curses are used to increase possible luck or cause headaches. Although now this is of no interest to anyone except the residents of Hansteam. In any case, this is a legacy of the past, and such witchcraft requires a huge amount of strength. In the past, Hansteam's black magic was even kept a closely guarded secret. They say that in order to avoid being caught by foreigners, various tricks were used. And now you should even ask the yard kids and they will tell you about a bunch of different curses, but no one cares about it. In any case, no one can cast a curse anymore, so the memory of the past is used to rally the population and gimmick the tourism business. But if the day comes when the magic comes back again, then it will be truly amazing. After all, in theory, all the people of Hanstim will be able to use curses. Risen said that it would be very scary then. After all, someone could just take her and kill her, and Jihan replied that it would not be so easy to do. This is actually very difficult. A huge amount of magic is required, and ingredients that are really hard to get. And besides the fact that there is a time limit, substances are needed that not every spellcaster knows about. Then Risen asked what was needed for the spell. Maybe human blood. To this, Jihan replied that human blood is needed in all black magic spells. The girl asked what else was needed. Then Jihan said that the blood of a person is needed by the one who needs to be killed, or who has mutual love with him. And the level of the curse depends on how strong their feelings are. If at least one of them is not in love, then the curse becomes completely useless. If the feelings are not so deep, then you can lose one leg. And if people love each other very much, death is possible, looking completely natural. Isn't this funny? How should a person preparing a curse find out about someone else's feelings and prepare the blood? After all, human feelings are so confused. Kaiden clenched his hand into a fist. If the queen is targeting Daniel and sent her people to take Risen's blood, then according to her information, Daniel and Risen are lovers. Jihan continued that this is an unbreakable curse. Such an action can be performed only once every 5 years. Since the skeleton of a killed person with the help of this curse becomes an ingredient for the next one, it takes 5 years for the magic to disappear from the bones. Risen noted that this is strange because then there should be a person who died the very first. But what if you need a skeleton to kill? Therefore, Jihan believed that this was impossible. For the initial one, it was necessary to drive more than 100 people into one place and kill them. It takes soil on which so many people died in an instant. Besides, the soil from that place can only kill one person. How is this possible? Without being able to kill one, finish off 100. They say that a long time ago, when there were many wars in the desert, it was easy to find such an area. Now there are not even wars due to the peace agreement with the Empire. More than 100 people at a time can only be killed by starting a fire at a ball like yesterday. Daniel summed up the results and they came to the same conclusion. Naram, who uses black magic from Reuben's side. After all, even children in the kingdom of Hanstim know black magic. The condition for the original curse was probably a fire 6 years ago in the Western Palace, in which more than 100 people died. And they did this by strengthening Layla's magical powers. There are 2 options. Either they held that ground all this time and killed William, or they killed someone 5 years ago and already killed the prince with his bones. But the timing didn't fit either scenario. A month has passed since the death of Crown Prince William. How can they plan another murder? This meant that friends were missing something or assuming something incorrectly. But all the ingredients that the prince called were collected in Catherine's shop. And besides, why do they need Risen's blood? Caden said when you can't get to the truth, you need to keep searching. And he went to visit Catherine's shop. Risen offered to help him, but he refused. After Caden left, Daniel told her that he just wanted to be alone. After all, he just found out that his parents were sacrificed. Suddenly, Daniel asked Risen if she liked him. Risen was silent, and he asked why she thought Testy needed her blood. Then Risen asked him if Ash told him that she and he danced 3 whole dances. This is probably why the queen misunderstood everything. The girl clarified that they danced because he simply taught her to dance. Then Daniel suggested that she give her his blood. He wouldn't get anything from it. The prince asked Risen to be careful. After all, they want to kill him and he must go with this matter himself. But if he had not been in love with her, everything would have resolved itself. Although emotions can be hidden, it is impossible to get rid of them. There is a way for the spell to not work, but he doesn't want it. Risen wanted to leave, saying that she had a lot to explore. But the prince grabbed her hand, and he said that he was worried about her safety and his own, respectively. Therefore, he will assign guards to her. They will act secretly so they will not cause her any inconvenience in everyday life. Daniel told Risen to remember that she was protected. To this, the girl replied that Caden promised to be with her as often as possible. The prince replied that Caden was busy, so he would not be able to protect her around the clock. And yet, his people are already looking for a man with a heel mark on his face. Although they suspect who is behind it all, they still need evidence for the final trial where everything will be revealed. Daniel took Risen's hands and said that it will be much more difficult when he becomes king. Will she be able to be cheerful next to him even then? The prince asked if he could take strength from her every time he was tired, and he added that just one of her jokes would be enough for this. Risen replied that if one joke is enough, then no problem. He can just come to the pharmaceutical department, although Professor Saphael will be very unhappy. But the guy replied, "No, here in my palace." He didn't let her answer and continued, "I might die, so I can't propose now. Sorry for the rush." Let's stop here now, and in a month when the period of doubt has passed, we'll talk about this again. Prince Risen was dumbfounded. He again asked her to take care of her blood, because he might die because of it. And now he doesn't want to die and feels his heart fluttering next to her. Risen lowered it in her laboratory. Daniel introduced the guards to her, and now Caden did not appear on the threshold of her house in the middle of the night. But even so, he could look at her at least once and ask how she was doing. She hoped that at least in a dream they would see each other. But it looks like they sleep with him at different times. Thanks to this, the girl was able to stay late in the laboratory of the Bureau of Pharmaceuticals and made significant progress in researching the antidote for the Dream Connection potion. But Risen was worried that because she and Kaiden had not seen each other for several days, they might become strangers to each other. Professor Saphael asked Risen why she was staying so long at work. After all, at this rate she will soon study all of Aunt Layla's works. The girl replied that this is why she is needed here. Since Professor Saphael was Layla's closest friend, Risen asked if this was not the same way her aunt worked at work every day. Saphael replied that it was so. It seemed that she simply loved the fact of research. Even when I was raising her as a baby, I studied literature about childcare. Risen decided to find out from Professor Saphael what those words about a mistress at the ball mean. It's as if Risen doesn't know his place, which is what a mistress should be. The woman replied, "What nonsense, and who said that?" Then Risen clarified that they said that this made her look like her aunt. Layla's friend knew what this meant. The processor replied that she knew nothing about this, and was about to leave the laboratory, telling her not to stay late. But suddenly Risen called Professor Saphael aunt. She remembered how after her aunt's death she asked her to call her that, and even bought her a school bag for high school. The girl continued to interrogate her about Aunt Layla. Saphael replied that it doesn't matter what happened before. The main thing is that Layla remains in their memories as a wonderful person. Risen screamed that she would not be able to remain calm without knowing what case her aunt was involved in and why she had gone crazy. Saphael replied that Layla had died, and no one and nothing would bring her back, and she will only tarnish her honor by stirring up the past without knowing anything. Risen grabbed her hand and said that it is still unknown why she died, and the professor replied that it was a natural death. She checked everything several times because of strange things she couldn't believe. Saphael said she used all kinds of reagents when Layla died, but ordinary people cannot even imagine for what purposes the royal family used it. Therefore, exactly 5 years after her death, the professor decided to double-check. She reviewed her remains with all the reagents 2 weeks ago, exactly 5 years after her death, since before this only a superficial analysis could be done. But it showed death due to natural causes. The professor said that Risen also took the remains from Aunt Layla's grave. After all, when she arrived, the grave had already been excavated. Then Risen understood everything. She wasn't the one who took the remains. And the curse is inextricable. It can only be performed once every 5 years. It was an ingredient. Then there is a possibility that 5 years ago her aunt became a victim of a curse. But who is the person for whom she was sacrificed? This person had to be her lover. Otherwise nothing would work. Professor Saphael knew nothing about this. And she said that if Risen wants to look for the remains of her aunt, then she will not stop her. But since the girl has been close to members of the royal family since school, she will give her advice. Don't forget that members of the royal family can kill anyone if it suits them. This is what they were taught from an early age, and has nothing to do with personality. Don't trust the princess and prince too much. You will not be able to understand their judgment of good and evil. And Professor Saphael left, leaving her alone in the laboratory. Risen decided that she would no longer tell anyone about matters related to her aunt. In fact, whether Crown Prince William was killed or whether Daniel becomes king is not important to her. Whether Ash was falsely accused or not is also not important. For her, the most precious thing is her aunt. They just all united to achieve some common goals. If she died unfairly, then the girl should tell this matter. And with everything else, let others deal with it. Suddenly, she remembered Kaiden asking how he could trust her. She decided that she could also do everything alone, and investigate the aunt's case and create an antidote. Risen was upset that Kaiden didn't show up, because he said so many good things to her. Why it was necessary to tie her to him like that, if now he has disappeared. For the first time in a long time, she had a dream. They were walking with Kaiden along a secret path and she asked if they were going to the prince. He replied no. Then she asked maybe they were lost. And Kaiden stopped and hugged her, asking if she would stay here with him forever. The girl replied that she could not stay here because she had unfinished business. And the guy asked her not to go to the prince but to stay here with him. Kaiden kissed Risen and said that he was tired and wanted to quit everything. The girl asked him not to give up everything, because they were almost there. But the guy said if they keep going, they will end up with Prince Daniel. And he goes crazy when he sees them together. And those people who took Risen's blood also think so about them. Kaiden pounced on her, knocked her to the ground and wanted to kiss her. Risen asked not to do this and even cried. Then he apologized. He didn't understand what was happening to him. The guy woke up and was horrified that he had brought the girl to tears in his dream. It seemed to him that if he didn't see her, he wouldn't think about her. But it was the other way around. As a result of his operation, in which a homeless man disguised himself as a wizard and became a regular customer in the shop, it was established that Catherine was distributing components for black magic. And also the components for the magical power enhancement potion that Risen spoke about. They are in a hurry to collect all the components, because there are only 3 weeks left until the end of the period of doubt. Kaiden watched as the owner talked to a man who had a scar on his face like the one Risen left. They said that there was no chance that Daniel would sit on the throne, and that he had at least some evidence. Catherine said that she would try to gather more magicians. And that man in the hood told her not to rush because not all the ingredients had been collected yet. Then she asked why they still hadn't taken the girl's blood. The man replied that the prince valued her so much that he introduced as many as 5 guards to her. But after all, this is good for the spell. Catherine replied that yes, that's good. 5 is a lot, he doesn't even take that much with him. That's why they haven't gotten to her yet. Catherine really wanted to see the girl the prince was crazy about. The man replied that she had an ordinary appearance, but was very obstinate and definitely not so simple. This man with the scar said that he underestimated her and for which he paid, pointing to the scar, said it looked like it was their family's distinctive family. The owner of the shop replied that this was really funny, because in fact the brothers fell in love with their aunt and niece. Kaiden thought that they were talking about Daniel and Reuben, as well as Aunt Layla and Risen, brothers from the royal family and an aunt and niece. Catherine continued that they still needed her blood so it wouldn't all turn out to be a waste. And by not succeeding last time, she dug her own grave. But they still couldn't kill her. Then that man said that he would cut her half to death because she made us his face. And Her Majesty will deal with all the consequences.